viewers, welcome back to Know Your Worth, Command Your Value. I am so excited to see you today. And now you know that I always bring you outstanding guests, and today is no different. I am pleased to introduce you to Michelle Tillis Lederman. Michelle started her career in finance, but quickly pivoted to something even more exciting and became the founder and CEO of Executive Essentials. This is a company that equips people with the knowledge and tools to communicate and lead with what I call, I don't know if she does, the 3 C's: confidence, clarity, and connection. But that's not all that they do. She, along with her team and coaches, are trainers, and she is a sought-after keynote speaker. Michelle is a self-described connection creator and is the author of 4 books, including her latest book, The Connector's Advantage: 7 Mindsets to Grow Your Influence and Impact. Folks, I think we have a lot to learn from Michelle today, so let's just get started. Michelle, welcome to Know Your Worth, Command Your Value. We are so delighted to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me on, and I love that title. Especially for women, we need to learn that, right?
Yes, exactly. That's why we started this series. Now, of course, with every interview, everyone always has to start with which says, tell our viewers about you. What's your origin story? You can start wherever you want, the beginning, where you are now, when you started your business, whatever makes sense for you.
Well, it's funny when you say origin story, I'm like, okay, now I want to put my cape on because I'm a superhero. I think a lot of times our origin story for anybody starts with an anecdote to something that was missing in our upbringing, right? And I'm no different from that. So for me, I had a lot of financial scarcity, let's just call it, in my upbringing. And the anecdote for that, for me, was a career in finance and financial stability. Mm-hmm. And so my origin story starts with the fact that I am photographic for numbers, been told I'm highly analytical, and I'm like, oh, accounting's easy. Let's just go do that.
You might be the only one who says that, but okay.
It made sense in my brain. Mm-hmm. I was literally a TA in high school for people my same grade because I just got it. And so you follow a path oftentimes of what you're good at and what will fix something that's missing. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you said I quickly pivoted, but you might be being generous. I spent a decade in finance. I was an auditor. I did mergers and acquisitions. I went to business school to get my MBA. I did financial consulting, hedge fund investing. I did private equity, venture capital. Like, I tried it all. And I could never find the thing that I was doing that didn't use the word money to describe it. Mm-hmm. Counting money, saving somebody money, making money, I like money, don't get me wrong. I was, right. That was something I was trying to solve for, but it didn't kind of feed my soul. And I got laid off in 2001 with just about everybody else I knew. And I feel like that's when my life started.
Right.
Because of my connections, I had a job offer within 4 days of being told I was being let go.
That's great.
And I started exactly 1 week after I was notified I was being let go. I was still on payroll.
Wow. Were you still doing the same thing? It was a new job in finance?
So I had been laid off from a consulting firm, mm-hmm. and I got picked up as a consultant for a bank. That's when I worked on a trading floor. Okay. And I did special projects. And one of those projects was helping my boss become the CEO of the Tokyo branch.
Okay.
And so I went out to Tokyo and I hired a coach to go with me, and I did everything she did and then some. And I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. I have found my calling. And on the last day of the trip, I had not yet gone to sleep because they were so happy that the whole trip was over that they took me out and got me drunk. Which listened to your inhibitions. And I went to the CEO for our 6 a.m. meeting, showered, dressed, and showed up.
Hey, you were young, we do these things, right?
I was in my 20s. And I said, I can do this. And he said, okay, you still have to do everything else. I said, okay, deal. Mm-hmm. And so my origin story was the belief, right? Knowing my worth and knowing my interest and my ability and having that clarity to ask for what I wanted. And being willing to put in the work to get what I wanted and still give him everything he needed. And
Okay.
so I spent my time, he would send me to a class. He's like, Michelle, I want you to teach us performance management. Michelle, I want you to teach us interviewing. Go take a class on it and then go to New York and go to Tokyo and teach it to everybody. And that's how I got started.
Wow. Now, there are so many things that you said that that caught me, that I wanted to interrupt and ask about this and ask about that. One, of course, is I always find it interesting, and it's my own story too, is that there's always a forcing function that drives us into something else that often is what we were meant to do. And so thank goodness for that. It's surprising that yours came so young in your life, in your career. But I guess the question that came to me was, you learned very early on your worth, and to hear someone say, I knew that in my 20s or in my early 30s is really unusual. How did you get there?
So I will give a little caveat there.
Okay.
I knew my ability.
Okay.
I had confidence and faith in what I could do and what I was good at.
Mm-hmm.
What that was worth to other people took some time to get a little clearer on. But I had a little bit of a cheat sheet, right? Because I hired somebody and I knew what I paid her.
Oh, of course.
I had, data at the bank of other trainers that they hired and what they were paying him. And back then, like we're talking over 20 years ago, somebody was getting $3,000 a day. And I was going, damn, that's a lot. I'm like, I could,
right.
And I was getting, not that.
Not that.
Not that.
Yeah.
And so I kind of said, okay, well, this is what people are being paid. And what I did think about is how I wanted to be positioned. And so as I started my kind of side gig, right,
Mm-hmm.
I started doing this work at the bank. I'm still in finance. I'm doing risk management. I'm using this vendor, and, a little bit of the winding story.
Mm-hmm.
My vendor hired me out of the bank.
Oh, okay.
And I went to work for this startup as the director of marketing, which I know nothing about, but they said I did. And I told them, I'm like, look, this is a short-term plan for me. I'm building this on the side. And they're like, fine. So I got my appointment to NYU. I was an adjunct professor at NYU for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the CEO of my startup and I said, hey, I can teach these times or these times. Which ones do you want? And they're like, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 5. I'm like, fine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I left work early and went to teach at NYU. Everything was above board. Everything was transparent.
Mm-hmm.
I had clarity on what I was doing, but I still gave everything to whatever the environment what I was in needed.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
I knew what I could do,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't necessarily know what it was worth. And I think our worth grows in time with our confidence.
Good point. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think though that perhaps understanding your ability and the importance of your ability had something to do with the fact that you were coming from a profession that's considered more of a hard skill, finance versus coming from communications?
Well, I was actually an accounting major and a communications and a writing minor. So I always had
combination.
I'm very whole brain.
Mm-hmm.
I have skill on the left side. I have passion on the right.
That's great.
And, so I can access what I need to access
Mm-hmm.
to find that balance. I always say the soft skills are really hard.
Right. Right. I think we're starting to realize that now, right? Within business, people are saying, oh, I get the hard skills. It's the soft skills that are going to kill me. Right. Or as
you can teach somebody technical things.
Right.
And, it is actually harder to teach somebody the nuanced things. Yeah. And to shift behaviors because we're so ingrained. And that's why, business is booming. Right. Actually, especially in the middle of a pandemic of how do we convert, how do we shift the way in which we're used to doing things to still be successful? And those are nuanced things. And I understood how important they were.
Mm-hmm.
And I also see what other people were getting paid. And so we were talking about positioning, and I wanted to position myself in a way that was, I always say in the top quadrille, like, or third. I didn't want to be the most expensive. I didn't want to be the cheapest, and I didn't want to be average. I wanted to be kind of somewhere between 66 and 85% of the price point. Like in my head, that's always where I wanted to be positioned. I was luxury, premium, but not Rolls Royce.
Right.
In terms of access, not in terms of ability or skill,
right,
but in terms of access.
That's very smart when you think about it. Now, the whole point of my show, of course, is in helping people understand their value and their worth, and we'll get to those questions before in a few minutes. But one of the other things, of course, is making sure that I bring on what I call just badass women, and without a doubt, you qualify, and then some. How did you get the courage or even the wherewithal to say, okay, I'm pretty young, I'm going to start out on my own? And I ask this both for our viewers and a bit, quite honestly, as a personal question. I've been in corporate, or had been in corporate, for 33 years, never thought I would leave the corporate environment. And I had a forcing factor as well. And I left, and I thought, wow, I can't believe people who have done this 15, 20 years ago, because it takes a lot. How did you get there?
So I love that and we started to talk about this a little bit before the show, and I love that you brought it up, because I think it's about people understanding the environment in which they thrive. You thrived in that corporate environment. It was not necessarily a reason for you to leave. And it's not that one is better than the other. It's about designing your ideal. And that's the phrase I want people to think about for themselves. Right. What is my ideal? And how do I define that? And for me, my ideal started with impact and flexibility.
Okay.
So, right, I didn't feel like the impact I was making in finance mattered to me, fed my soul, right? I wanted to be a teacher when I was in 6th grade, but I didn't want that paycheck.
Right.
So I figured out how I can be the teacher that I always wanted to be. And I actually started teaching finance and accounting for the American Management Association just so I could teach. Because I went to them and I said to them, hi, I'm Michelle. I want to train for you. I train on communications. And they look at my resume and they said, no, you're a finance trainer. And I said, hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a finance trainer and I want to train for you. And I did. And I blew my courses out of the park, because I story told and I made people, understand accounting and finance, which is so scary. I said, I took the fear out of finance. So sometimes it's the stepping stones. Right. It's about doing something to get you where you want to go. And it is scary to make that leap, but I didn't leap.
Right.
I built, the ladder. And so when I started doing the work in 2001 and realizing it, I wasn't fully on my own until 2005.
Okay.
I got my appointment at NYU in 2004.
So you had a plan and you followed it.
I didn't.
Oh, you did have a plan.
I think I had a plan. I had a vision.
Maybe that's more important.
I had a vision. I had clarity. I wanted to be a working mom with the flexibility to be at every event in the front row, doing something I loved and getting paid well for it. I had a vision. And I wasn't exactly sure exactly what I would be doing, because I had like 8 different product lines at the beginning.
Right.
Like
it does take time to hone in on really what it is you're going to do.
Right. And now I'm finally at that place where I can say, you know what? Yes, I can do that, but no, I don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great place to be. Right. Yeah. Right. And I think too, that's where vision comes in, because vision helps you determine what to do as well as what not to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so, as long as you're staying true to it. Let me go back a little bit and talk about, again, what I dubbed the 3 C's, which was probably pretty bold of me because you may not refer to them that way. But communications is close to my heart. But communicating with confidence, clarity, and connection. Talk to me about those.
These are my words. I love these words. the most persuasive thing is confidence.
Yes.
So all of you out there who are thinking about how do I know my worth, sometimes it's fake it till you make it real. I believe in authenticity. I mean, it's chapter 1 of this book, but sometimes we need to project how we want to be seen, and confidence is key to that. You need to believe you before anyone else will believe you.
Yes.
And if you look at a PQ, a persuasive quotient, confidence is the most persuasive element of influence. Okay, so confidence is key, right? It's how we sit, it's how we speak, it's how we know when to stop talking, right?
Yeah, silence can be your friend.
Silence is very powerful. Clarity, right? I said I had a vision. I knew what I was trying to create. It wasn't perfectly designed. I didn't have this perfect plan. I just knew what's the action I can take next to get me closer to that vision. So when I talk about the Connector's Advantage, which is this book, I talk about 7 mindsets. One of those mindsets is have a clear vision, because you can't get what you want if you don't know what it is.
Right.
So clarity, when we're talking about communication, right? I'm talking a little bit about vision, but also about communication. It is about, as we just said, knowing what you want, knowing how to ask for it, knowing why they would want to give you what you want. So presenting it in a way that influences them, and knowing when to shut up.
Right. 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 And we hear that from Marshall Goldsmith a lot, right? Just sometimes you just need to shut up.
Yep. And for me, the most important of the 3 C's, I'll coin that with you, is connection. Because to be a connector is not to do something, but to be someone. And it's to put relationships first in everything that you do. And I have statistics upon statistics that will tell you that your success is going to get faster, easier, and far beyond your dreams based on the connections that you have and the relationships that you build. It's just faster, easier, better. That's the Connector's Advantage. Right. And as I said, like, I wasn't trying to get a job in 4 days when I got laid off. I just called my buddy from business school and said, hey, let's get a drink. I just got laid off.
Right. Well, and it's when you have authentic relationships with people, right? And I think people sometimes confuse being a connector or even being good at networking with quid pro quo. And I have found that it's really more about having authentic relationships with people, and they surprise you, right?
So when I originally wrote this book, one of the chapters was called The Law of Reciprocity. And it really just didn't land with me, because that's quid pro quo.
Right.
And I changed the chapter to The Law of Giving. Because it isn't about the exchange. It's about giving because you can and you want to, without expectation, and understanding that when you have the mindset of giving, when you have the spirit of generosity, which is something we talk about in this book, it gives you permission to ask for what you want, because you know that you have a giving spirit.
Yes. Yes.
And, and so it isn't about, it's not about me, it's all about you. No.
Right.
You need to understand that you need to be generous with yourself as well. You need to know what you want. You need to be willing to ask for it. But give first, give often, and give without expectation.
Right, right. Michelle, there are so many things that we can talk about, and so many parallels. There's a chapter in my book called Ask for What You Want, right? And there's also a chapter in my book called It's Not All About You. The sooner you realize this, the better. So I just really appreciate your perspective. So 2 questions I have, because I know we do like to keep these brief. Once you realized that you kind of understood your ability and your value, you knew your worth, how did that change the decisions that you made? Or did it change the types of decisions you made or how you made decisions?
It constantly evolves for me. And I will share with you, it's still evolving. My son got very sick in the end of 2020, and that shifted how valuable my time became. And my rates went up.
Right, of course, right? Right, because you choose how you're going to spend your time.
If you're kind of trying to figure out, like, what's my worth? And I've coached so many people on how to price themselves.
Mhm.
And it comes down to this. When you go and do something, whatever they pay you, whether it's $1 or $1 million, are you going to feel good about showing up that day and about what and how you were valued? Or are you going to get and be like, I can't believe I said yes to this. And I'm
Yes.
regretting this. And that is your telltale sign. And I started to be like, you want me to get on a plane for that? Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
Mhm.
And so I doubled and tripled my rates. And when they said no, I was like, I don't care. I was
Right.
fine with it.
Mhm.
I just started to, really focus on my priorities. And right now, my priority is I've got kids at home for 3.5 more years. And
Mhm.
unless it's a lot or I can take them with me,
Right.
but you know what? Sometimes they say yes. And I'm like, damn, okay, I'll do it for
Right.
that.
Yeah, I know even with my own practice, it's only happened twice, but my two worst experiences have been when I chose to lower my value and accept an assignment, and you regret it every step of the way leading up to it. And when you get there, you realize that you want to give your best, but you're not even sure you can because you feel like you're not being valued. And
So
I thought, I'll never do that to myself again.
I love that you said that, because when we feel valued, that is when we shine and we show up. And sometimes being valued doesn't mean being paid. There's a lot
Right.
of ways to feel valued.
Yes.
Um, so I love that you said
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Well, you actually already answered my last question, so I don't need to ask it again because you just answered it so beautifully. But tell us about your latest book, and then also how people can get in touch with you.
I love to hear from people because obviously I'm a connector and that's what I love to do. And the best way to get in touch with me is on my website, which you can see the full spelling of my name. Just put a .com at the end of it, michelletilslederman.com, and you'll find me. My company is executiveessentials.org, but really the hub is my website. You can get to my YouTube, my LinkedIn. I got a new LinkedIn newsletter I just launched.
Oh,
So
great.
I send out an article every week.
Mhm.
Um, and the Connector's Advantage is my latest baby.
Right, but not your only book, not your only
Not my
one.
only book. It's actually a follow-up to the 11 Laws of Likability. And
Okay.
I summarize the laws of likability in the Connector's Advantage because it builds on it. And my brother-in-law came in when I was writing. He's like, oh, another networking book. And I'm like, no. This one's about being a connector. He's like, well, what's the difference? And I looked at him, I'm like, that's a great question. And I had to think about it for a second. And I said, networking is something that you do, but a connector is who you are. And that became
Beautiful.
the last line of my book. So I know that you like to ask advice at the end, and you said I already gave some,
Yes.
but here's my advice is keep connecting and don't think about why. Just build the relationships that you want to and that you get to, because they will be there when you need them. And
Yes.
when you think about, I do have one piece of advice on worth.
Yes, of course.
Boundaries. Get really clear and practice saying, this is my rate, and stopping talking. Don't let the silence make you nervous. Don't start negotiating against yourself. I'm sure you've heard all these things before. When you practice it, I had to practice saying, I'm really good at what I do. I am worth it. Right. And I will now say that to other people. I am really good at what I do, and I am worth every penny.
Gosh, Michelle, I built this as an interview, but this has been a masterclass. This has not been an interview. This has been a masterclass. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I usually say to our guests, thanks for being our expert, but you have been the uber expert for us today. So thank you so much. And to my viewers, we will give you more information on how you can get in touch with Michelle. And as I close out today, just in case no one has told you this today, you are enough. Thank you.